Well, welcome back to the Radio Gamescast. As always, I'm your host, Ryan, and I'm joined by my lovely cohort of co-hosts, Alex and Alex.
It's
Hello.
actually Kermit, and you can't prove it.
Great.
You can't
And
prove
what?
I wanted to make some joke about how we're delaying the start of our podcast, much like how Nintendo's delaying their pre-order, but I couldn't quite come together.
Yeah, I had to
unfortunately.
let it kind of marinate a little bit.
I didn't have enough time. I didn't have enough time to think of a good zinger. I never do.
Yeah,
but
yeah. Well, that's on you. So
It is.
okay, so Wyatt's gonna given our start thing, we're gonna be talking about the Switch 2 stuff. Unfortunately, in talking about the Switch 2 stuff, there's some other stuff we have to talk about.
Oh,
What do you mean? What do you mean?
So-
this is a great Nintendo gaming console. What bad stuff could there possibly be happening?
So, this is a context.
Kermit
All
is
of us,
Too good.
all of us live in America, so we're dealing with the face of the Switch 2 pre-orders being delayed, which means I feel like it's our responsibility to give some context as to what's going on here, as well as just mention that, like, hey, we're not normally a political podcast, but there's some. I don't think we've shied away from kind of, I think,
No.
revealing bits about that and our
I think
thoughts on
I'd
things.
love
So
to not talk about politics during these, but unfortunately, it impacts
to.
my hobby and comes up.
It just
Our-
keeps
our
coming up.
hand- Our hand has been forced in this particular situation.
yeah, so we don't talk about it on the show unless something like the exact scenario that's happening right now is happening, which is that there are a bunch of tariffs that the American president, Donald Trump, is putting on a bunch of countries, basically every country, and that's affecting Switch 2, especially badly, given that I believe Nintendo's production is in Vietnam, I want to say, and Vietnam's
well,
getting hit
ironically,
particularly hard.
Ironically, from what I understand, they switched a lot of their production to Vietnam to avoid the tariffs that were already in place from the U.S. and China to begin with. But now
Vietnam's
Donald Trump
worse.
has just gone
So
and done tariffs all over the fucking place.
I could be wrong, but I believe Vietnam has already backed off their own tariffs to get the US to back off tariffs as well. I don't know how that works out for them. I do not know the nuance here. It was simply something I had to sit through a work meeting about on Friday.
Oh,
Great. So that is the other caveat here. None of us follow this stuff too closely. We're not economists. We don't know
We're
what's
gamers,
going on.
okay?
We play
Okay,
video
our
games.
Our intelligence has a ceiling. All right,
So if you
give
want
us a fucking break.
if you want sensible, reasonable takes with well thought out opinions about the economy, that's a different podcast.
Maybe go watch Quick Money or something like that.
One that I'm going to assume that none of us are on.
Yeah. No. So we're here to talk about funny haha video games and Nintendo stuff. But unfortunately, funny haha video games and Nintendo stuff has been delayed. So we need to mention it.
So far,
Um,
they have not delayed the system launch itself. They've just
Yes.
delayed the pre-order window.
Yeah, and so I want to give
So
some
far.
context
Which
and
we-
like numbers for the stuff going on with the Nintendo Switch 2 right now, because when the Direct happened, we've all watched it, we've all seen the Direct, and we're gonna get really into the Direct in just a few minutes. So we're getting the bad stuff out first, and then we're gonna jump straight into the excitement, right? So Nintendo Switch 2 launching June 5th, I believe, at 250 or not 200, 350. Fucking $450 US. Jesus.
oh.
my own ability
Wow.
to say
That
numbers
was
is
Current
riled.
price is $450.
That was a
See,
that was a
the problem
dream,
is I was
my
actively typing this in to fact checked myself on the release date at the same time, and that really just messed
Oh,
up my
wow.
thought flow. But yeah, Switch 2 is still planned to release in early June. The pre-orders were meant to go live in the US on April 9th. They have gone live in a few other places around the world, and I think a lot of other areas are following that April 9th timeline as well. So expectation was that next week, actually I think day after this podcast goes live, we were supposed to be able to pre-order the Nintendo Switch 2. That has been delayed, and we don't know to when. Nintendo hasn't had a second announcement as of the recording of this episode, So it's possible that by the time this is out, we know more information. But as of right now, we don't know when pre-orders in the US are going live. We do know the Switch 2 price, which was meant to be $450 or $449.99, is up in the air right now. With the tariff situation, I think they're waiting a little bit to see if they need to bump that price. We also, I doubt this is going to affect the price of games. That seems like it would be something that they can kind of fly under.
To my understanding, digital products are not tariffed as well, so I wouldn't super be surprised if like games got a $10 bump or something, but the digital release didn't.
Exactly. Yeah. Because there was a rumor floating around right after the Switch 2 Direct that games would be $80. Mario Kart World specifically was going to be $80, but would be $90 if you got a physical cartridge. That didn't come from anywhere. Like, there's no source for that for the US, at least. I think what had actually happened is they'd looked at the euro price on some stores had been like postmarked in as $90 or 90 euros. And they just translated that to $90 and whatnot and gotten a little confused. And nowhere on the Nintendo website does it mention the MSRP of Mario Kart World being different. We still know, so the Nintendo website still states all of these MSRPs. It states the Switch is $450, the Switch 2 and Mario Kart World bundle is $500, Mario Kart World is $80 on its own, so all this information is still relevant according to Nintendo's websites right now, but again, we just don't know if there's going to be a surprise hike up with this.
I'm wondering too, because I thought $450 might be the tariff price essentially, since it seems to be cheaper in Japan. I don't know how much of it may just be sort of behind the scenes. They need to figure out like new shipping lanes and stuff.
Yeah, there's also the Japan price is a little interesting because there's two SKUs in Japan. There is the Switch 2 Japanese only, Japanese like language version, which can play other games, but it can't connect to the eShop unless you're on a Japanese account, and all the text is Japanese. That version is, if you do some like translation math with the sort of weak value of the Japanese yen right now, it works out to be about $150 cheaper than the $450 price range that the $500 bundle pricing that US is seeing. But they also have a second SKU in Japan that is the not regional SKU, and that one itself is at the same price essentially. So it seems like this is more of they're trying to combat some of the pricing of Japanese yen and like address that like internal Japan problem, which is that the yen is really weak right now, and they have a price for that. Essentially, it's just regional pricing. The conversion of that works out in the favor of someone else if they were to go to Japan and buy one, but of course, like, you're getting a Japanese locked console, so I hope you know Japanese if you do that. And I'm sure they wouldn't be a huge fan of you going and just trying to take a Japanese console for the pricing. Yeah, that's the whole Japanese situation. Otherwise, yeah, we don't know what truly to expect. I think all of us are a little bit concerned about what the price is going to end up hitting.
I believe in the last episode, I said $450 was my max.
It was the max we felt comfortable with. Was what most of us landed on.
$450 was what I think it should be at. What in terms of what it would take for me not to buy it, I need to know how I feel when I see the price, if there is a price change at all, which there probably will be. But
I definitely was planning on buying the $500 version with Mario Kart bundled, but like, it's gonna be hard to sell if it's $500 without Mario Kart.
It's a tough thing because I mean, obviously we don't know what the new price is, but how much,
if it even gets an increase,
even if it even gets an increase to begin with, because from what I understand, the prices that are set as of the recording of this episode, what's on their website, was already with tariffs in place that were previously implemented. So it's a tough thing to tell if like how much of this is like typical Nintendo greed and how much of this is related to tariffs. It's kind of hard to tell.
I'm also wondering, I don't want to get too political, but our current president has attempted to implement tariffs before and then immediately called them off, and similar sort of behavior where things are really unsure of what they will look like even a week in the future. So there's part of me that wonders too if a big company like Nintendo just wants to hold off for a week or two and sort of just see where it all lands before they
I would not be
start
surprised if
shipping
that's the
things.
case.
Because what this is a game of chicken, and the thing about a game of chicken is that it eventually ends.
Yeah, one way or the other, we'll know the result.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to mention a few other things too related to the like pricing and our thoughts on it. The other thing, we're moving on from the tariff discussion, but now into like console price in general. We're gonna front loading the price stuff just because it's the stuff that's less fun to talk about. So let's get it out of the way. Switch 2, $450. I think that's a price that doesn't really surprise most of us, assuming it is $450. So moving past the tariff discussion. Is a higher price than I think a lot of people are expecting. I think a lot of people were expecting 400 baseline, and not 450.
Yeah, 450 has me wanting to wait until a sale to buy the console, which when does a sale on consoles ever happen?
In reality, is probably
Nintendo.
Nintendo doesn't really do those until they release their next model.
Yeah.
So it'll be a while for the price to drop at all, I think.
This could be potentially a hot take. I actually don't think 450 is a bad asking price. Like whether or not it's something that one can afford, that's a separate discussion, obviously, and it's dependent on the individual.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think that's unfair.
But I think what we're seeing here, because I'm going to go out on a limb and say for at least most of us here, this is more powerful than what we were expecting.
Well, that's the thing with this conversation is, so we still don't know the internals of this thing.
I'm very interested because the devs showing off the stuff seem confident enough in it. I keep describing it as hopefully pessimistic. I want to think that, Cyberpunk there's just no possible way it could run well on the Switch 2. So I can be pleasantly surprised when it does.
So I think what CDPR has officially said is docked, it'll be 1080p at 40 FPS.
That feels like an awkward number.
Well, it's not as awkward if you're someone who has run a Steam Deck before and knows that a lot of games of this caliber tends to run within the 40 to 30 frames per second in a handheld type scenario.
You said that's docked or undocked?
I believe that's docked.
They were touting 120 capabilities, but I don't know what game
So that's the thing with the 120. I actually do want to talk about the 120 stuff as well.
But also with this processing power that we're all speculating on, this means that Game Freak no longer has any excuses to make a bad Pokemon game.
Oh, they already haven't had that excuse.
Their excuse is the horrible engine they made.
Like, look at Monolith Soft and the games that they put out. Like, I'm playing Xenoblade X on Switch.
Tears of the Kingdom still runs better than a Nintendo game. than a Pokemon game.
Yeah, it looks gorgeous. Like, we all have our own issues with how Tears of the Kingdom actually runs when you get to the later game stuff. But the actual game looks beautiful the whole time. The Pokemon games don't really fit that moniker. And even Pokemon ZA, I mean, at least it looks like it runs okay. So I'll take that over it looking gorgeous. But yeah, still doesn't look great. I'll probably play it anyway.
I was sort of relieved to see ZA in this, because in the previous one, it looked like ZA was running poorly in the trailer they were showing off. And
yeah, I would guess it's because the first time it was probably Switch 1 footage, and not Switch 2.
So I'm looking at it here. 1080p docked, 720p in handheld mode for Cyberpunk, between 30 and 40 FPS depending on the mode, performance, and quality mode.
Yeah. So that's what I wanted to mention about 120. So I would guess that the reason the screen is 120 hertz is not actually that they expect most games to run at 120, although I'm sure some indies especially will. It's because 120 is more divisible to 40. So you can have good frame rates at 30, 60, and 40. in good frame pacing. So a normal screen, like if you're running the Switch 1, which I believe has a 60 refresh rate screen, and you were running it at 40 FPS, it would skip a little bit and would feel a little off. And it's just because the frame timings don't quite line up that way. With 120, you can cut to an even 40, and it's also, if you're on 120 and you have like frame variance, it's not going to be nearly as noticeable as a 60 hertz screen. If the frame rate is like jumping between like 37 and 40 frames, it's not going to feel as weird because there's a lot of leeway in that number for the frame to refresh. So you end up having something that feels a lot smoother regardless.
So the only game that I know of that's that runs at 120 FPS on Switch 2 is Metroid Prime 4, which is actually pretty
That could
sweet.
be
Yeah, which is very impressive. Like that's a good looking game.
Yeah.
So yeah,
absolutely.
like I'm not super pessimistic about that part of things. To wrap up the sort of price discussion, the other thing I want to mention with pricing is consoles are typically sold at a loss. In the history of games development, that's a very common thing, is that companies will sell a console at a slight loss so that they make the money back on the software sales. That loss has to be pretty small because a lot of like our own habits as people that are really into games aside, the average person buying games doesn't buy like 30 titles a year. They buy like 3 to 4 maybe. Maybe a few more if they're buying some indies. Maybe they have Game Pass or they have something else to supplement that, but they're not buying every game that comes out. So you need to make up that loss within a very small number of digital sales typically. So I would also think that a big reason we're seeing this pre-order delay is so that Nintendo can figure out, if they're already selling this hardware at a loss at $450, what number they need to be at so that it's in an acceptable range, or if they're looking at like game pricing as well. So the hope is definitely that they wouldn't make the game pricing higher, but I could see a reality where they bump it by $10.
I could bet you, as we're talking right now, there is a line of Nintendo accountants throwing up spreadsheets, doing all sorts of calculations on their calculators right now, trying to answer that question.
Absolutely. I fully think that's 100% what's going on at Nintendo right now. Is they're really doing every number run they possibly can. I don't think this is a case of like, even the Switch 2's already high pricing compared to expectations, especially the games pricing. I don't think it's a case of Nintendo greed. What I do think might be a case of Nintendo greed is the upgrades. I think the upgrades might be Nintendo greed.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Well, that and the tech demo you have to pay for.
Yeah, I was going to mention
we'll
that
see
one.
with that stuff. We'll get to Welcome Tour.
There is some classic Nintendo greed in here, like, to be clear.
Yeah, I think it's just
guess, and what I
separated
was
from the
saying-
console price.
And what I was saying was, in a situation like this, there's a very blurry line between what is Nintendo greed and what is the current tariff situation, and just economy in general. And so I hesitate to blame either for any specific thing. I think it is a complex melting pot of shit, basically.
Yep, that's about where I am at as well. So I would be pretty happy with it staying under 500, I think. I think that's sort of like I would be happy to buy it in that range. If it starts pushing above like 550, I think we're really hitting a price point that's just like unachievable for most people right now. Because the problem with the tariffs is the tariffs are aligned
with tariffs.
The tariffs are aligned with potentially a recession. So if we enter a recession while also being tariffed and the prices get really high, when you're in a recession, typically entertainment spending goes down. So who knows what this is going to end up looking like in a little while.
Perhaps
and it's
I'm
also
going
like
back
this
to
is all
finish Sword and
localized.
Shield.
This is all localized to like an American perspective. Like I believe European pre-orders are totally fine. I'm sure Japan ones are also fine. So there's a lot of like crazy
I think the rest
worldwide
of North
stuff going on
America
with
is
this
fine.
one.
Even.
Yeah. So I think this is just a wacky situation that Nintendo's been put in, and Hopefully this stuff resolves itself sooner rather than later. But yeah, for now it's affecting our video games, and so we have to talk about it. But
how do we, before moving on, how do we feel about potentially spending $80 on one video game?
I'm not going
I
to do
think
that.
it's-
Not going to happen.
I think it's in a strange spot that it only seems to be Mario Kart that's at that price, at least so far. It's really hard to justify $80 on a game. I understand that like games price has not changed like for like 20 years basically didn't change from $60 and then it went up to 70. I don't know how many Nintendo games made $70. I think I only ever saw Tears of the Kingdom at that price, but
I believe that's the only one. Yeah.
Well, there's that, and then you still need the Nintendo Online account to do half the content in the game.
fair enough.
For Mario Kart, like what?
Yeah.
I don't play online much, but
you only
Yeah,
need it
'cause
for
none
like
of
for
these are
doing
fine.
online modes. You can do it. There's tons of single player in Mario Kart. Like
Oh,
it's
okay.
AI races,
But
but
And Mario Kart has a huge. I mean, a lot of the reasons.
also
people
say to
play
add on
Mario
to this
Kart
price discussion, it is
is-
Mario Kart because Donkey Kong Bonanza has a $70 MSRP on Nintendo's website. So
yeah, it seems a little
Why?
bit
they're
strange
clearly
that it's
looking at
just-
it place by place. My expectation with this is I think Nintendo's kind of trying to break the industry out of the every game should be the same price at AAA attitude. I don't know how that's going to go for them. I mean, again, none of us are economists.
I
I
wasn't
also
sure if they were
wonder-
trying to promote buying the bundle, but I don't really know what.
I don't know what the price is.
benefit
Like,
that gains.
at the $70 price, it would already be a good bundle, right?
Yeah,
I wonder how much of this is based on the fact that Mario Kart 8, the original, was
Wii U
a
title.
Wii U title and lasted through an entire generation of game console before we got here. And in that time, it's not as though the game was just stagnant for over a decade. There was the Switch, deluxe version, which added a bunch of stuff, and then throughout the past however many years, they've
Mhm.
been adding tons of maps and other things to that one game for over a decade. So I wonder if it's a like hedging bets situation where this is also going to spend over a decade before the next release, and that is why it's so expensive, is because it's going to last that long.
I agree, and I have sort of two thoughts off of that. First off, I wonder if we'll continue to see the $80 price point on the like once in a generation games that come out for Switch.
Yeah.
And I also wonder that this is wishful thinking for sure. There's no way this is true. But I almost wonder if Nintendo is putting an $80 price tag on it instead of selling a DLC for it.
And then we'll
Yeah,
be getting
I
closer
really
to
wonder
You
with
mean
that
like-
one.
Do you mean to say that they're selling the special edition and the DLC will be included down the line as a quote unquote?
Instead of packaging the game as it's a base game, pay for DLC later, I wonder if it's just going to be a game that's $80 and you're going to receive updates. I kind of have a hard time seeing that.
Yeah,
and
I
feel
don't
like
think
maybe they
Nintendo
would have
would do
said
that.
that.
I feel like unless they
In
were really explicit
capitalism,
about that.
no company would ever do that when they can make you pay more money.
Exactly.
Though-
That's
I mean, we say that, but Nintendo is generally like one of the more generous online pricing things. Like Nintendo Switch Online
bet we
is
will-
by far the cheapest online thing, and the virtual console equivalent that they have with all the retro games, and especially GameCube and whatnot, is pretty cool if you're into that stuff. It's just
if
like
you're into that
another.
stuff, though.
Yeah, which
I'm
is why
also
they have
just
the expansion
wondering-
pack pricing, right? Like, so they have the regular and the expansion pack thing.
if we'll see a few updates for
Now-
free
now,
and then
play-
DLC, basically.
To play devil's advocate to that, though, at the same time, you're also paying for an online service with by far the least stable
I agree.
online connection. There's whatever servers they're using, it's running on fucking dial-up or something. Like it is
And look-
terrible.
Oh, we'll get to game chat in a little bit. I think in general it's just a case of like there's so many unknowns right now that I think everyone's attitude's a little bit pessimistic because Nintendo in the past has done some pretty weird things in this scenario and similar scenarios. So, like Welcome Tour especially is just a bizarre thing that they're charging money for that.
We'll get to that for sure.
Which, yeah, we'll talk about when we get to it. So it's just a lot of like really confusing things. I don't know if these all lead to the same decisions being made. But like back to what Wyatt had originally asked about like the $80 price of Mario Kart. Mario Kart to me is one of the few games where I'm okay with that. But okay is relative, right? Like, would I prefer it were cheaper? Yes. Am I morally opposed to paying $80 for Mario Kart? Not necessarily, just because I know it's like I've gotten so much mileage out of Mario Kart 8 and its various DLC and whatnot ever since that game launched, and I've been playing that. Like, I'll typically play that at least once a month. So once a month for like 10 years, if not more, at this point is pretty great. So I don't know. I'm happy to pay that amount for Mario Kart. I do think there's a lot of games that I wouldn't pay that for. Like, if the Mario spin-off games that they do pretty often, like if I have to pay $80 for Mario Tennis, I'll be upset.
Oh my god.
I'll be very
Those
upset.
games have low enough sales already.
That's the thing. I think for me, and I think for a lot of people, $80 for a video game is a much easier pill to swallow if something we had mentioned earlier, if like the AAA games industry as a whole adopts a wider range of prices across their games. What's happening right now is AAA developers, publishers, whatever, it's like $60, $70. That has to be the price of all of these things.
And there's like deluxe
I
editions and whatnot that tend to make up the
and
more varied listing of
yeah,
prices.
and I think we need to what needs to start happening is even with AAA, because we're obviously seeing this with AA, which is quickly a ever shrinking category, but also with indie, is that I think part of the reason indie games have had such success that they've had is because there's a huge range of pricing in there. You can get high quality, super awesome indie games for $6. You can also get really cool indie doubling on AA games for $40, and people are totally willing to spend a game that is $40 versus $5. Partially because I think there's such a wide range of prices in there that people feel like they're not really missing out as much. And I feel like in terms of these, giant AAA releases, I feel like something similar needs to be adopted where like, hey, we're whoever big AAA company, we're going to be releasing this $80 video game that comes out once every 5 or 6 years. But in between that 5 or 6 years, we're also going to have a lot of really cool scaled back, smaller scale projects for $50, for $40, for $60.
Yeah, what we refer to as like Nintendo's AA games, like Mario and Luigi and stuff like that tend to be lower budget but still really cool.
I'm sure
games.
that almost all of us have like paid for a game on sale, played the game and went, wow, how come I haven't heard more about this? Did people not like this? And then you might look at a review or just think like, oh, wait a minute, this came out a year ago. I just paid $30 for it and people paid $60 on launch.
That happens with
Maybe
most
then I
Ubisoft
understand.
games.
Yeah, I'm thinking Ubisoft game every time here, pretty much.
Yeah. I think it's pretty common. So
Yeah. And again, I think it's just an easier pill to swallow if at this price range there was more of a range of price for various games. But it feels like everything has to hit that 60 or that $70, and so it becomes harder to justify when it feels like it has to be there, even if it doesn't really seem like it should reach
I would
that.
pay $80 for Red Dead Redemption 2. I would not pay $80 for Assassin's Creed, but they are both $60 AAA games.
Because
How
I am
many dollars increase do the horse testicles amount for?
at least two.
$2 each.
Okay.
Because
Fair
I
enough.
am kind of with Ryan, where like again, based off of how much mileage Mario Kart 8 got, I feel like $80 for this isn't the most unreasonable thing to ask, considering how long it's
No,
going
it's
to be
also
and how well supported it's probably going to be.
I think for me it also comes down to the risk of it, where like if I'm spending $80 to $100 on something for a video game, be it the game itself or being a peripheral or something like that, I want to know that what I'm playing is gonna be fun. And Mario Kart is one of the few franchises where there is zero doubt in my mind that that's gonna be a really fun video game.
So I
and
do have a
if
lot
it were
of...
something like Assassin's Creed, where it's like, for me, Assassin's Creed feels like a crapshoot. I'm actually really enjoying Shadows, but I really didn't like Valhalla. So it goes all over the place.
I really agree with you. Like, there hasn't been a Mario Kart game I haven't liked. I didn't particularly like Mario Kart 7 because it was on my 2DS and I got a hand cramp after one lap.
I
But,
love
like, the
Mario
game
Kart 7.
itself
I
was
played it on the
fun.
bus.
But like, it's a fairly safe bet I'm going to enjoy Mario Kart. I do kind of wish that for $80, and I'm sure we will see more. $80 is steep. Like, I would love to see like an in-depth video about everything we're getting for $80,
Yeah,
just to know
absolutely.
the depth of content there.
Absolutely.
All right.
Also,
I do want to move us on
Yeah.
from the price discussion, because we're kind of spiraling, I think, into taking this pretty far. And half an hour of price talks is, I think, enough.
Oh,
for
God.
us
Yeah, let's
to
talk about
move
something
on
fun.
and talk about the fun stuff. Because I am certain we will be talking about the price again as soon as the Nintendo does like a whole, it reveals what the actual launch pricing for America is, at least, as well as whatever pre-order plans are happening. We'll talk about this again, but for right now, we got some games and stuff to talk about, and some hardware to mention.
let's get to the fun part of all of this.
Let's get to the fun
The fun
stuff.
part. You mean the camera and the C button?
Positive.
So we start out, Mario Kart World gets a big reveal. The gist of Mario Kart World, if I turn off the French subtitles in this video, is that to me, what this says is Mario Kart Paradise, like Burnout Paradise, which has
I was
me
thinking Forza
tremendously
Horizon.
excited.
I was
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
first comment.
Forza's a great
in
comparison
the
as well.
Chat when we were talking about this was Mario Forza.
I don't know. I feel like I'm gonna have a great time with this. I think
Yeah, probably.
It
Mario
looks
Kart.
really
We
cool.
just spent a lot talking about it already, but yeah, I generally think the whole drive everywhere thing is a pretty strong.
Look, I
pull
love
for
that in
me.
games. I'm a sucker for it.
I'm a sucker for some fun action with Mario. I think it's just gonna be a
Plus,
good time.
It seems like if you don't want to deal with any of that, they give you plenty of ways to just do typical kart racing without having to deal with that if you don't want to.
Yeah. Which I think is a really good thing. I'm in general very excited about.
I love all the new
World.
movement. I love all the movement tech, like grinding and like driving on walls, kind of like a wall run, which looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah, and
In
water
terms of-
racing as well.
Mhm.
Very cool. I'm a big fan of wave race. So
Yeah. I'm kind of curious about the courses because there seems to be pretty defined courses and also an open world that you can drive around in between races and literally to get from race to race. So I'm kind of hoping that as we see the game launch and evolve, we can maybe see different configurations of races or sort of like a make your own course out of the open world or something.
just
sort
for
of
you,
create a
Alex,
variety.
Treehouse has been doing huge breakdowns of Mario Kart World gameplay, and they have all of that stuff.
Well,
There's
have
like
not seen that.
hours of Mario Kart World footage that you can see going on, and this stuff has got me more excited for Mario Kart World because it seems tremendously fun. The tracks look really
See,
cool.
when they said Treehouse, I had turned off the stream and I didn't think about it.
Yeah, for people who don't know what Treehouse is generally like they do hours of gameplay footage of every game that they talk about on the show. So like there's tons of stuff to go through. And generally it's small chunks of like 20-minute segments per game. But we saw a bunch of Metroid Prime 4. We saw a bunch of this. We saw a bunch of Donkey Kong, like a ton of Donkey Kong. That's answered a lot of
I'll have
questions.
to go back and watch this stuff then.
So yeah, this is definitely worth like checking out if you want to know
This
more about
OG
this.
Donkey Kong course looks pretty.
But like this looks like a great Mario Kart course. I generally think if you want to know more about these games, Treehouse is a really good spot to go to, and they've got tons of stuff. So most of the stuff that is
Right,
Nintendo
maybe I take
directly.
back what I said about I want to see more about it.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a me problem.
And hey, they also give you everything because you got the whole. Here's what game chat looks like when you're doing streaming. There it
God.
is. So this is what you can
Am I-
expect
am
to
I-
see when you're.
Am I
game
the
chatting.
most positive on game chat here? I thought it sounded nice that it was included.
So I like that game chat exists. I do think it's serving a very narrow audience with it being limited to Nintendo. Because like at least for me, game chat functionally won't exist because I'll just be using Discord.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, but we do also have to keep in mind that there are people where their only game console is a Nintendo Switch.
Exactly, and I think for those people that's great.
Yeah, and they may have friends where their only system is also a Nintendo Switch. And so I think something like this is important to have. That being said,
especially the trailer for this was really surreal because the US stream had a ton of audio desync, and so the words were not coming out of their mouths at the right time on the live US stream.
All that being said, there are two things to mention with this. One, something like this should have been an option many years ago. Like, they are so late to the party on this that
I mean, they
it's
had the
like
Nintendo Switch app thing that nobody used because it only worked for like Splatoon.
The other thing is, I understand that this is a Nintendo console and they want to have their own Nintendo whatever. It should have just been Discord. I'm sorry.
Though I will say, I think there are legitimately some really good benefits of game chat for kids and parents, because it does have a lot of like control mechanisms that Discord just doesn't contain. Yeah, so it would be okay for like if you have a younger kid who knows some friends that play on their Switches, and they want to play together, but you want to know that like they're talking to those people and not to random people on the internet. Switch 2 can do that, which is cool. So
I don't want to interrupt, but like I really don't believe it's gonna do a great job.
This I don't believe. Absolutely not.
No way.
I don't buy it for a second.
Though I am guessing that what they're using is probably based on NVIDIA Broadcast, because I believe NVIDIA is the chip developer for the Switch, makes the hardware stuff, and NVIDIA Broadcast does work really well. I don't know if that's going to work at the scale. Like normally when I'm using NVIDIA Broadcast, my microphone is next to my mouth.
When my mic is right here.
Yeah, so when the mic is not near me, I don't know if that's going to work the way they expect it to.
I don't know why it's not just like PlayStation where the mic is in the controller.
Yeah, that's a great question, Alex.
I mean, it has bad audio quality, but it works.
Yeah, really surprising me that the mic's not in the controllers. I guess maybe the Joy-Con spacing is probably hard to get the technology that the Joy-Con needs and also a microphone, and I imagine maybe the magnet would do something to it. So there's a whole bunch of stuff, I think, going on with that. That said, yeah, game chat, I mean, cool feature. I'm probably not going to use it. The camera looks insane. the whole camera gimmick is crazy.
I truly cannot imagine anyone I know will buy an external camera accessory.
It uses any USB-C microphone or USB-C camera, so it doesn't need to be the Nintendo camera. You can use any camera and webcam with it. But
I'll plug in my webcam once for shits and giggles.
Also, I will say it's cool that they allow you to screen share to everyone else in your chat. What is up with the frame rate? Oh my god, it's awful. It's awful.
Oh, they're not the expanded screen, but there's a bit where they expand the screen and it looks absolutely terrible. Like really, really bad. Yeah, there it is. So
like that is like sub 30 frames. If it's 30, because like
no, that's not 30. That's got to be like 10. Legitimately, that is super low.
I think 30 is the bare minimum.
Granted, I'm kind of fine with it in this bigger overlay. Like this looks fine to me, just because I'm not going to be like paying attention to those bottom screens as much, so I don't need to see them really actively the whole time. And I imagine
that's just to check in what your friends
work faster. But I do wish, like, if I expanded it, I would like to see the stream in full quality. But I guess they probably just have not. This is not for streaming, right? Like this is not a thing that people are intending to use for that.
Yeah, when it comes to like
it's just confusing, like what the use case of this is. Like we're gonna expand it and not fully, and it's gonna sit in the middle of the screen and be really low frame rate.
It's another example of like in terms of just internet connectivity, Nintendo is so far behind. It's like shocking. And they've been able to get away with it before because it's never been the focus. But I get the impression with all of these new features that it's something they really want to focus on more. But this kind of shit, if you're going to be doing that, is not acceptable anymore. Like, you have to step up your game when it comes to
Yeah.
that sort of thing. If you're going to be
It's
adding
also
all
odd
of
because
these,
like there's a whole
chat
button
and-
dedicated to this. Like the controller real estate has gone to enabling all of this to work really well, which is cool from the perspective of it working well. But if I'm not using this, that button does nothing for me. So I don't know. Interesting.
But a lot of this functionality is limited to people who don't have Nintendo Switch Online. So
Yeah.
when you think about it, it's a button that only really works if you are paying a monthly fee for it.
Which
Oh.
is kind of weird.
Oh.
Which is-
Like I want to know what that button
Does Game
does
Chat
if you
only
don't
here's
pay
what-
for
Switch
online.
Yeah. Well, and that's the
That-
thing. Is like when you
gross.
want to talk about what's, tariffs versus Nintendo greed, that's classic Nintendo greed.
Yep.
Right there, full display.
Like they're not.
I don't know. I
being
might call that
subtle
one
about that
classic
one.
Microsoft
No.
greed that caught on.
No.
It's just interesting because the whole Nintendo, like this is just odd. The whole like game chat button, and then it doesn't work if you don't have the online subscription. So what is that button gonna do if I don't have a subscription?
because
Can
here's
you
the thing.
take a screenshot, maybe?
It's
Because
either
there's
going to
already
do
a
nothing
screenshot
or
button.
put up. It's either going to do nothing or bring up an annoying prompt every time you push it.
Because here's the thing, that all of this C button stuff could have been part of the menu when you like hold the Switch home button, right? It could have just been integrated into that,
Oh
but it's a whole
yeah. Huh.
separate button that has no functionality unless you're paying a
Clearly
monthly service.
Yeah, clearly they really want to advertise this. Otherwise, it would not be on the controller.
But if
Yeah,
that's the
they're pushing
case,
it.
they got to step up their game. And from what we've seen, they haven't yet. Like
All
I
right.
refuse to play fucking Smash Bros online to this day because I still cannot get a good game working. So
All right, let's move on to the hardware stuff. This is, I think, generally everything we all expected. They did some hardware talks before that kind of gave us a look at what a lot of this is. Same thickness, better controllers, basically. The crazy things with a 120 FPS screen that's 1080p. That's a pretty big increase compared to the Switch 1.
it is not an OLED screen.
Not an OLED screen. It's an LCD.
And
Though I will say,
it
this,
seems like
so Digital Foundry did a whole breakdown on the footage and whatnot and what they expect from this. They're speculating that it might be a mini LED LCD, which is comparable to an OLED. It's a cheaper technology that doesn't have the true blacks that OLED does, but it's much cheaper and it still looks really good. So I would guess that that's probably what they're using. But this is where we get to the whole Nintendoism, because they could just not. It could just be an LCD screen that isn't very good. But it has
I will
HDR
give them
support.
credit.
So
No, that's the thing. I want to give them a little bit of credit for it being a very souped up LCD screen, but it's an LCD screen, and the ceiling of quality for an LCD screen compared to an OLED can only go so high, no matter how many.
yeah.
Nice
Though I will
features
mention
you see.
handheld, one of the benefits of LCD is they generally can get a little brighter than an OLED can in bright conditions. So I could see that being a benefit if you're playing in like the sun or something. But again, like how
They always
often
seem
does
to
it
show
actually come up?
someone playing on a rooftop or something. So
Yeah, they really like the
clearly they expect that.
rooftops.
I mean, they're gonna do an OLED model down the line. They're
Yeah.
going to.
Oh,
And
the
that's
mouse.
Absolutely.
And that's the
Oh,
only
boy.
reason that they're not doing it now is because they can save it for another model later on.
Mm-hmm.
So
So I'm hoping this is a good quality screen. It probably is. I'd expect this is at least pretty decent. The microphone stuff, who knows? This is all
I mean, I'm
up in the air
assuming
until we
it's
get our hands on
probably
it.
I'm assuming it's probably fine if you're just in handheld mode and it's right in front of your face. That's probably fine.
Yeah,
How
if
many
like on
times
my
are you
desk
gonna
here,
be-
it'd probably be okay. But
How many times are you going to be playing an online game or chatting with your buddies in handheld mode? Maybe if you're on the go.
maybe this is the
if
new
you're at a
thing. Maybe we all
hotel
need
or
to start playing
something.
games on our couch, like leaning back and playing in handheld mode, and that's going to be the future of video games. So
Oh, boy.
Yeah, I'm gonna get on voice chat from my bed.
I also do want to mention the two USB-C ports. Very cool. I
That's
like
very
that you can
nice.
charge
Yeah.
on handheld.
That's
Oh,
For
and
the
the
nice.
top,
storage.
very good. 256 internal storage is great. That's like a flat
That's
out
wild.
That's a
nothing bad I
huge
can say about
increase.
that.
Absolutely.
Especially because it's presumably really fast. So one of the big things they did with this is there's a new standard for the SD cards that you can use with this called SD Express. This is like a dramatic increase. So SD Express is like dramatically faster than a regular SD card. But your regular SD cards are not going to work with the Switch 2. They're just flat out, you cannot use your old stuff from the Switch 1 on this. And I think that's going to upset a lot of people.
SD cards are fairly cheap, aren't they?
They're cheap, but they're slow compared to like what the PS5 and this Xbox Series X are using for storage speeds. They're really slow comparatively. So I expect what they want, and even the SD Express is not as fast as a direct storage or whatnot that is being used by the modern consoles. So this is probably as close as they can get to having like freely swappable external storage. And the cool breakdown of what like the tech behind these is functionally they're the same as an NVMe SSD that has like just tiny form factor. But instead of having the whole slot width of an SSD, it's got like a third, so it's not nearly as fast, but it's still very good compared to older speeds that you would find on Nintendo stuff. So I'm expecting that to be a pretty noticeable bump in loading times and whatnot. They have the whole mouse mode thing. This is, I don't know.
I'm really curious to see how much actually uses that.
I wasn't
and how
sold
it
based
feels
on
in
this, but in the Nintendo Treehouse, somebody is playing Metroid. They're doing Metroid Prime 4, and they're swapping actively between controller, which is like their classic Metroid Prime lock on screen, and then when they're in like an intense fight, they put one of the controllers down, and it just flips automatically. Like it's not like you need to hit a button or something. It just goes into mouse mode when you lay it that way on a table.
I feel like I'm gonna
seems like it
have
just
to
works.
feel this
So-
one in hand to make a judgment on it.
Yeah, like I
You
could
know?
put my Switch 1 Joy-Cons in a mode like this, and it doesn't. I don't know. It feels weird, but the Switch 2 is pretty bigger, so it'll probably feel a lot more natural.
I'm gonna prefer it over motion controls.
Now, one thing in terms of the hardware that has not been touched upon at all is stick drift.
Yes.
Or what kind of thumbstick.
So they
tech
focused
that they're
on the
using.
thumbstick. They did like zoom into it and go, "Oh, it's better." But what that actually means, we don't quite know. So I really hope it's a lot
This time there's
more
a little
improved.
bit
I
of
hope it's a
red
Hall
around
Effect
it.
stick. It seems like they put more thought into it this time than they did in the Switch 1, so I really hope that it is actually a durable stick. But we just don't know. We just don't have that in our hand, and they
Even if
haven't
it gets
done a full
stick
reveal.
drift eventually, but like as long the Switch can get stick drift, I have not really had too much trouble
Wait,
with
Ryan,
it. Thank
pause real
God.
quick. Pause real quick.
Mhm.
Okay, wait, no, wait. This wasn't the right one. There was something that I saw where if it's in docked mode, it only supports 60 hertz and not 120.
So it can do it's a HDMI standard that can't do 4K 120. So it can do 1080 120. It can't do 4K 120.
Okay.
It do 4K
Okay.
4K
Makes sense.
60.
Okay, gotcha.
Which most people probably don't have TVs that support 4K 120. That's a really new like cable standard.
No, I'm not
So-
I'm not judging them for that at all. I
Yeah.
thought for a second I saw that it wasn't available in 120 hertz, but if it's only 4K, then that makes sense.
Yeah,
That's
require a compatible display and whatnot. So yeah, the dock. Big difference with the dock this time is it's an active cooling system. There's a fan in there
I
that
think
is
that's gonna be huge.
Yeah.
pushing air into the Switch. How effective this is yet to be seen because it's a fan pushing on.
It looks like a
the-
dinky little fan.
Well, I mean that's what every fan looks like in a computer. So it's the same as
I
any
don't know,
other
I mean-
computer fan.
I have 3 that are the size of my hand right next to me. I don't
There's been a couple of times recently where I have pulled my Switch, or more so my partner's Switch. I think there's something up with that Switch, out of the dock after just playing it, and it's hot. So I think that
Yeah.
anything is better than nothing, you know?
available and compatible games is
They're
the main point.
approaching like what I've always wanted them to do with the dock is have it be like an external graphics card. Like that would be my dream use of a Switch dock, and they're like starting to experiment with
That would be
that a little
super
bit.
expensive, though.
I understand.
It's
I
the-
Yeah, we
understand.
want to talk
Some
about
gaming
price.
laptops
That's
have
going to
done.
launch it up there into the stratosphere.
Because eGPUs are a thing. I'm not saying that. I think what we had talked about was that it would be an interesting, like, if they had a dock like this at launch that comes with the system, and then
Yeah, they
maybe
did
an
like an
optional
upgrade option.
eGPU would be
I-
really cool. But
I like that the kickstand isn't just to one side anymore.
the kickstand looks good.
Yeah, the kickstand is
Um,
it's like the Switch OLED, sort of.
The only
but without
difference
the whole
being is that
backplate.
the OLED,
I'm a
yeah, the
little
OLED
worried
kickstand
with
is
how
more of a flat piece like that.
I'm a little worried with how thin it is. It looks like it's kind of easily snappable, knowing how klutzy I am with shit.
I'd be surprised because it's probably metal. I'd imagine.
One thing that they didn't,
Okay.
and I wouldn't expect them to get into the nitty gritty specifics in a presentation like this, but the Switch, annoying thing about the Switch is while it supported USB-C as its charging port, it had a very wonky power standard that made it
Yes.
very tricky to, like, you can't just use any USB-C charging device. Like, you can, but there might be, I mean, as we saw with third-party docks, it could brick your Switch if,
What?
the planets align incorrectly.
Oh god.
And so I really hope that they're backing away from this stupid, weird power standard that they used in the first Switch, and that it's
Mhm.
just more compatible with, standard USB-C charging. But obviously, they didn't talk about that here.
Yeah, they haven't really touched on what that is. We do know people have gotten hands-on with Switch 2, so like Digital Foundry got hands-on with it. A bunch of other outlets did as well. And I believe there was some mention of the power standards. I don't remember what that mention was. So it could be that they have talked about that. It could also be that they haven't. So just something to look out for if you are interested in that. I think there is.
One thing
I-
I will say as
I have-
well. Sorry, go for it.
No, stay on topic. I've got a thing to jump to.
One thing I will say as well, in terms of the Joy-Cons, I really like the idea that they're magnetic, and from what we've seen with hands-on previews,
Never mind,
they
that was my
seem-
topic too.
Yeah, there you go. They seem very solid.
Yeah.
Because I cannot stand if I'm using my Switch. These are relatively new Joy-Cons.
A
They
little
wiggle.
wobble.
And some people are less annoyed by it than others. I can't.
It makes me nervous.
It
Like,
hate
it
it.
absolutely
It
makes me
feels
nervous.
awful.
I haven't even noticed it with mine, but
Even though I've never had a
Oh,
problem with it. Like, not once has it been a problem. But it
The
is
one
totally makes me
thing
nervous.
that I don't like about the magnetic bit is the you guys saw the what's the like controller peripheral thingy that you place the Joy-Cons in. That looks like it's even more uncomfortable to hold than the one for the original Switch.
It's probably
the little
bigger.
grip?
With
Yeah,
how
right
with how
there.
with
we'll
how
have
those
to
bulge
see.
out.
It's
Because with the other ones, you
probably
slid the
fine,
Joy-Cons
but
in, and it was a little bit more flush with the surface. Here, it's bulging out more.
yeah,
no,
like you're gonna have an awkward raised thumb to get to this area
Yeah.
because these are gonna be below. I mean, that controller is not gonna be super comfortable regardless. I think so. It's nice that they include it. It's not a thing that I ever used. Like, to me, I always, if I were playing, I would go split Joy-Cons like that and not use a controller thing for them because it feels more comfortable
I
to me.
didn't ever really
feel like
terribly
either
mind the
way,
controller thing, but
I kept running into getting hand cramps.
Well,
But,
that
you know,
might just
that
because
could
they're
just
very
be a me
small.
thing because you guys were
No, I'm
making
with you,
fun of
'cause
me,
these
my
are small.
hands cramping when we were playing 33 Immortals.
That I will make fun of you for.
I-
But these are
I didn't
small
ever-
controllers. Like,
I didn't ever have
absolutely.
it too bad with the when I'm playing on the TV, I got bad hand cramps the moment I tried to play in handheld for certain games.
It's why
not
I
for all
always
of them,
like
but certain.
the Pro controller. It's one of the best Pro controllers, or best like console
Yeah,
controllers.
it's nice.
And yeah, it's super comfortable. One of the most comfortable. So I don't think there's a huge concern from me about the like comfortability of things, given that I'll probably be using the Pro controller and not the regular stuff. Though there is, speaking of Pro controllers and whatnot, we did get confirmation that the Switch 1 Pro controllers will work for Switch 2. So you should be able to use, like, I believe Bluetooth Connect, your controllers and your Joy-Cons and whatnot that you already have should function as a controller for the Switch 2. At least from what I heard. So if you've got the stuff, you can use it. You'll just be missing some of the newer features like the C button and whatnot if you care about game chat and stuff like that.
Coveted C button.
The coveted C button. So a lot of stuff like that. All right, let's move on from hardware because that's about as much information as we have. Hopefully we'll see more as we're going on and learn some more about the internals as we get closer to release, which again is pretty soon. It's releasing in June. So, all right. Next up was the Switch 2 Welcome Tour, which I think this is going to be one of the only other negative segments of this podcast. Because the Switch 2 Welcome Tour is not a pack-in free game. It is, I think, $10. According to Japan, it should be around $10. From what the Japanese pricing is.
All over again. It's 1-2 Switch all over again.
This is like, I like this. I like this as a thing because it's almost like a playable manual is what it feels like, right? That's a cool idea.
That's what makes it crazy. 1-2 Switch is a game, at least.
But this is like bizarre. Like paying for this with your console, I don't want to give Nintendo $10 for them to give me a manual about what the console does.
This is another, again, this is Nintendo greed. There's no way around it. There's
but at this point, is it even greed or is it just confusion? Because like I just don't.
Can it be both, Ryan? Can it be confusion?
It can be both. It can be both. Absolutely.
Greedy confusion.
This is just something that I'm like, so I don't understand what this is going to be used for.
I was just like, oh, this is cute. I have to pay? No.
I guess it's neat that you can play golf.
Not for this.
It's kind of amazing how what made Astrobot's Playroom or Astro's Playroom so much fun, because it was fun on its own, but it's like we didn't have to pay for this. It's a cute way to introduce your brand new $500 console.
Them doing
and it was
this
free
when we had Wii Sports included.
That's the thing. Like Nintendo has a grand history of pack-in games being great. And just having nothing for the Switch 2, and you made this and didn't make it a pack-in is so crazy to me.
I'm gonna make the argument that Wii Sports' success is the reason we are where we are right now. How many people at Nintendo do you think were thinking, "Oh, that game did so well for us. We could have made so much more money if we had sold it separately." And now they're trying to they've tried to recreate the magic of the like pack-in game, but now they're charging for it, basically.
I also
crazy to me.
I mean, this might be something truly insane to say because I don't know if I fully believe it. I also don't think we'd be here without Wii Sports, in the fact that I don't know where Nintendo would be without the success of the Wii, and I think a significant amount of the success of the Wii hinged on Wii Sports.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't think. I think
there's parents and grandparents who bought Wiis because Wii Sports Bowling.
All right. Well, that's the Nintendo Switch Welcome Tour. Really not much to say about it.
I don't think it's going to be welcoming a whole lot of people.
Get it off the screen.
You know what? I can see a case for this if at least it were included in the expansion pack, but I don't know that it is. So moving on. Switch 2 game cards are basically the same. Your Switch 1 game cards will work in the Switch 2. All that jazz and wonderful stuff. This is the whole Express card standard that we already talked about. It's a different standard.
There is a caveat. We do have to, I hate to bring us back to the negative again, but we have to talk about game cards a little bit.
We do need to talk about game cards a little bit.
Because there will be Nintendo Switch 2 game cards that will not have key cards that will not have the full game on it. It will essentially be an installer that requires the internet to download the game, even though you bought it physically.
The game key cards are even more strange because they don't contain the game data. But when you plug them in, you have to have that plugged in to access the game. So you need to continue having the key card. So like it's actively worse than buying digital.
There's another sort of addendum to that I heard too, that the Switch 2 versions of Switch games will be just the Switch version of the game with a code for the
I did
Switch 2
hear-
upgrade
Yeah,
bundle.
I did
I
hear
believe
Now,
that's
it
the
is
same.
clearly printed on the front of the box.
I also wonder if maybe that's
So-
better though. At the same time, because like then if you
I-
have a Switch 1, you can like loan that card out to somebody and they can play
Yeah,
it.
I personally don't mind that, but I do understand the want to have everything packaged
Yeah,
on the
just
game
have it
card.
ready to go.
If you don't have internet, you don't
Well, especially if
need
you're
to
going
make
to
a
be
download
paying
then.
extra for physical games, which is what it seems like is going to be the standard going forward, is that digital games are going to be what, $10
Yeah.
cheaper than the physical game? And so if you're going to start buying game cards that still require the internet in order to get the game onto your Switch, but you're paying 10 extra dollars for basically a bit of plastic. That's
The
a
worst
tough
of both
sell.
worlds.
Yeah, exactly. It's a really, really tough sell.
So the only interesting thing with the game key cards, and this is a thing that, so I'm not 100% sure this is how they work. According to everything Nintendo has released, I believe this is correct, but obviously nobody has these in hand and can confirm this. The one benefit compared to a digital download, you can trade these. So like you can give someone else your key card and they can put it in and they can play the game. Compared to with a digital download, you obviously can't share that unless they're in your family group and you do the whole virtual key card thing, or virtual game cartridge shenaniganry that they went over last week.
It's becoming so convoluted.
It's really convoluted. I like that you can have the virtual card and then give it to somebody, but for me, having the card in my console being a prerequisite means I would just never buy the game key card generally, because I would want to just have.
Well,
me-
it's just
Mhm.
showing that it's like it, in the future, right? Game preservation for the Switch 2 is going to be even more of a nightmare than game preservation
yeah.
already is. Because now you have these games that require the eShop and an
Yeah.
internet connection in order to actually install them. So there's going to be games like Bravely Default 2 that won't have a functioning physical version for the Switch 2 when at some point the Switch 2 servers will be shut off online, taken offline in the future. That will happen. It's not going to happen now, but it will happen eventually in the future.
I mean, it's already happened with like
Didn't they
3DS and whatnot. So
Didn't they say
3DS, I will say, I just did it. If you own the game digitally on 3DS, the servers are down for the shop, but you can still download games you purchased from the shop at one time.
yeah,
Now, mind you, I am sure that in another 5-10 years, that will go away too.
Oh god.
But it is there for now, even though the shop is offline.
But that's still stuck to your 3DS.
It is
So
still
it's
stuck.
the game preservation is for the
No,
3DS is still a
I
fucking
agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like there is an assumption that if you have a Switch, you will be connected to the internet, typically. And I think that PlayStation and Xbox have this assumption as well. That, like, the assumption is you have a connection to the internet and you are, when you plug in the game, you are connected to the internet. And so, like, if you think about it, like, oh, I'm buying a game, I plug it in, it makes its initial download in a few minutes, and we play. That doesn't sound insane.
Mhm.
That's what I do with every PS5 game. But the fact that if I'm, say, playing in handheld mode in the car, as I did many times with a DS as a kid, perhaps I'm on a road trip and we stop in a Target or a Best Buy or a GameStop. I don't know where people buy games these days. I'm not hip with the youth. But if you are a kid and you're going on a road trip and your mom says, oh, it's an 8-hour drive. Why don't we buy you the new Pokemon, Timmy? And you give that kid the game card and he
Oh.
cannot play the game?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what the hell's that? Now, mind you, it's maybe only a select amount of games, but for a console that feels as handheld as it is a console, it feels weird to me that it assumes for installing a game, or at least some games, will require you to be on internet.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that
This is
what we're
not
truly going to see
this
is
is not
whether or not.
unique to entirely unique to Nintendo either. I mean,
No, but it's sad to see Nintendo finally,
Yeah.
I guess, more
Yeah, 'cause
caving
they were
to
kind of the
the
holdout.
I know
standard.
that I saw one of the games that is the keycard deal, I believe, is Elden Ring. So I really do wonder if it's just a size deal, like they cannot fit Elden Ring
It's
onto a
interesting
cartridge.
because I do know as well, Cyberpunk, they're showing up with a 64 gigabyte cartridge. So
Okay.
Cyberpunk is
will
on a
be-
cartridge, right?
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
So
yeah, I don't know.
I think it's just entirely like a publisher thing. I doubt Nintendo games are going to do this. I think it's just
What
I
I've
believe
seen-
from everything they've announced, none of the Nintendo games have the empty cartridge.
Which,
deal.
yeah,
It
I
very
wonder
much
if this
seemed like a
also makes things.
cost-saving measure more so than anything else.
Yeah, I also wonder if this makes things more accessible for indie developers if they want to have a physical release. I have no information to base that off of, so whether or not that's true,
There-
we won't know
I-
until things start coming out.
Stop me if I'm getting too much on my soapbox here. But I also really wonder, not to go back to our worst topic of the day, but because digital goods are not subject to tariff, I wonder, there's already a push towards digital goods from every developer, it seems, and every console. GameStops and whatnot are closing left and right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Best Buy stopped stocking DVDs. I would not be surprised if someday we hear Best Buy stops stocking physical games. I know that a
Oh.
friend of mine went to like a Walmart or a Target to buy a Switch game, and there were no physical Switch games. They were empty cases with codes. I have not personally experienced that, but somebody I trust
Yeah,
told me that
who
they
knows?
ran into that recently. So
is
I
interesting.
wonder if, there's already this push towards digital games. I wonder if tariff and import cost will further that push towards digital games as well. It's not something I'm like becoming a physical media like cultist practically here. I'm buying up DVDs like nuts. I bought the complete original series of Pokemon on DVD yesterday, but uh I don't know. I wonder if we will see in the next few years an even heavier handed push into digital
Yeah.
games. Like stuff.
I also wonder if maybe this is
just not
Nintendo's kind
releasing.
of compromise to that. Of Nintendo, I think, wants to have physical media, but it's probable that I think there's a real push from outside forces that are like, oh, we don't want to do this anymore. So this is sort of their way of
I
compromising.
agree. I feel like when I go to the store, I feel like I see more of a physical Switch presence than I do.
Well, like
for some of the
Nintendo's
other
going to do
consoles.
things like a Labo and Ring Fit Adventure. I think they are going to try to stick with physical media as much as possible. All right, that said, I want to move us off the game card topic and talk about some actual games. Because the only other notable thing in the hardware section, I think, is that the Switch 2 has a Pro controller, which
It
is
looks
cool
quite nice too.
because
It's
it's
got back
basically the
paddles.
same as the regular Pro controller, but with an audio jack and back buttons. So it's everything I
done.
want from a Nintendo Pro controller. I think
Well,
this looks great.
Well, the only other thing is I don't know if those are analog triggers or not.
I feel like the back buttons might be a little too easy to hit where they are. Like not the ones on the top, but the ones on the back where the handholds are. I feel like they might be a little too easy to accidentally touch the way that I hold it.
That's gonna be a grip thing. Yeah, you do kind of have to get used to
understand
it.
what you're
but
saying.
in my experience using controllers like these, this has not been a problem. And I use like an Xbox Elite controller, and that has like the paddles are very easy to trigger if you move them, but it's pretty easy to like figure. You kind of have to relearn how to grip the controller correctly, but you can do that, and it's not really much of a concern. To keep your fingers so that you're not automatically pressing those buttons in. They showed off some insane stuff with the Switch 2 editions. This is the other thing we mentioned where like some games you're going to have to pay for a Switch 2 edition. Some games it's going to be free. It seems like it's generally up to the game. One of the ones you got to pay for is Mario Party. And it actually looks like they did do like a pretty big addition of content. Like none of this stuff is in the game already. So I don't know. I kind of see this one as more as like a DLC than...
To go on the other side, I saw Scarlet and Violet is getting a free update.
Yeah.
And I, from my understanding, from what they've said, I think that may just be more of like a bug fix / performance update. So
that's what I imagine. I think like the Switch 2
DLC.
editions are content. With the exception of the Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom ones are a little confusing to me because it seems like they're entirely
That's
apps.
additional content For sure.
The
it's
GPS
definitely
Zelda
not
notes is additional
an app.
content. It's definitely not just a physical guidebook you could have had. Yeah, the Switch 2 Zelda, interesting. Voice navigation to points on the map is kind of crazy to me that you can GPS in Zelda.
It's stupid. Sorry.
But there's some stuff I
Maybe
really
people
like.
are out there
Like, I
and
like the QR code device sharing. I think that's going to be
Don't
really
drink
fun.
before you podcast, guys.
I
You're just gonna
think
yell out
I
your
think
opinions.
the only reason I would ever use this feature is I remember when I was first playing Breath of the Wild, I wanted to try and 100% complete it.
Yes.
But I will say, going over this giant open world with a fine-tooth comb to look for every single shrine and every single thing is kind of a pain
because
in the
it's
ass.
clear it wasn't designed for 100% completion. Like, they
Yeah.
want you to find things
Yeah.
naturally. But if you're a person like me or Wyatt who really likes 100%ing things, that becomes a problem. Because you go insane trying to find a Korok seed or a shrine just hidden in a corner. So I do think this could be useful for that. What I'm actually excited about, I think a master mode playthrough with all this stuff could be really fun.
Yeah.
To do like a 100% master mode run.
Can I make
Tool assisted master
one
speed run, but it's with the Zelda Notes app.
Yeah, can I make one addendum to my critique on the GPS? I wish that it was like voiced by like the Zelda voice actress or something.
Yes.
I think it would be more interesting if it was a little bit more in universe than
or at
just,
least made like
it
in-universe
seemed
noises in
really
addition
like
to
Yeah,
the
like
Robo
a-
voice.
oh my God. Like Faye or God, wait, what's her name? The sword spirit from
Right?
Yeah.
Fee?
Hell, Navi, Midna.
Yeah.
Any of those.
If I hear Navi's voice coming from that, I'm breaking my
Hey,
phone.
turn
Hey,
left.
listen.
No,
Yeah, I mean,
you
generally I'm pretty
turn.
ambivalent about the Zelda stuff, although I definitely will be picking them up to play them at high frame rates. The
that's a
Kirby stuff
dream
looks
alpha
cool. There's a
mode.
bunch of new Kirby stuff. I think this is very cute. This game's great, so I'll probably play it just because I want more of that game.
I haven't played it yet, but I think that would probably be the perfect time to play it, is the Switch 2 version.
Yes. And then obviously, like Metroid Prime 4, I think a lot of people are going to be picking this up only on the Switch 2. Like, I think that this is going to be a Switch 2 launch title functionally for most people. Looks really fun. I think Prime 4 looks like a really grand time, so I'm very excited about that. And this is the whole bit where they mentioned that you purchase the upgrade pack for these games. Not for every game, just for the ones that they mentioned are the paid upgrades.
Which is not an unheard of thing. I know PlayStation does a lot of those.
I've
but
done that for
I'll-
some PS5 games.
I'll make the argument that PlayStation, in some cases, tends to go the extra mile for making you pay a little bit extra.
Yeah.
The remaster for, I can't believe they call it a remaster. It's so stupid. But
Last of Us?
upgrade pack essentially for Last of Us Part 2 not only had
I'd
better
be more
visuals,
behind it if
better
they called them upgrade
performance-
packs.
Yeah, no, it's a stupid title, but like they not only had better visuals, better performance, but they also had cool cut content, behind the scenes stuff. They also had like an entire roguelike mode added to it, so they really went the extra mile. So it kind of depends on what's going to be in these upgrade packs, other
That-
than just
Yeah.
performance
Got-
boosts.
If it's a linear game, hell, give me a director's commentary thing, like
That'd be
That would be
great.
great.
what they did.
That'd be great.
Yeah. All right. Next, we saw Dragon Drive, which looks crazy. I think this is a fun concept. I do think the like style and aesthetic here of grunge is a weird fit for the game,
It's so
and
gray. It's so
it's like really
drab.
gray. It's not like Nintendo fun. I almost would have preferred like an ARMS aesthetic to this than.
It's like bordering on an ARMS aesthetic, but they took all the
It's like
color out.
ARMS, but an Unreal Tournament instead.
It's arms, but all the emphasis went into fingers.
I'm really gonna have to see how this one plays because I'm having a struggle imagining the
Also, the
double
movement
mouse
that they
gameplay
showed
is-
for having to accelerate, that looks exhausting after a bit.
So that's the
Yeah.
thing. A lot of the hands-on people have played this game, and the mentions that I've generally heard are that it's just actually like really tiring for your arms. And there was a lot of mention of like people were just tired after a couple matches, and that it was fun, but they didn't see themselves playing it long term because of that. Because yeah, to me, this is almost in like the weird middle ground of like not quite VR, but doing things that VR
Hey, that's a
normally
sick shot,
does.
though.
I don't know. Drag and Drive, like, this is a cool concept. I don't know that I see myself paying for it.
Also,
Uh,
let's talk about the ergonomics here, because most people are probably going to be playing this at home on their TV, which means
yeah.
the Switch control, the Joy-Cons are going to be on your lap,
And
like
what we talked about
on each
before,
individual thigh.
or a coffee
I
table, right?
imagine
I think you're gonna have to be bent over the coffee table to. Oh
Yeah.
God.
And the other
Yeah.
thing, too,
Come on,
is, like,
guys,
I would think
you're
the
thinking too
ideal
small.
case...
The return of the TV tray.
Yep.
So it can wiggle on my lap and then throw something over.
For me, I'm on a desk, and, like, even on a desk, you'd think that's the perfect use case for this, but my keyboard's on the left side. So if I'm going to do it, I have to, like, shift over here and be really awkwardly to the side to be away from the keyboard.
Or keyboard in the
Everyone will
middle,
see what
Ryan.
Or I
and
have to,
then
like,
a
tuck my
Joy-Con
keyboard
on each
away,
side.
which, like, it's too big to really do that with on my desk because it doesn't fit underneath my little, like, monitor riser. But, yeah, like, just a lot of really strange decisions, I think, were made with this. I do think this looks fun, though, but at the same time, like, I need to see more. Like, I need to know what this game has going for it, other than just the 3v3 multiplayer, and if that is the only thing, because a price point for that's going to be real weird. And I do worry that this game's going to have a hard time finding a player base, like ARMS did. So...
And what kind of like content are we going to be seeing for this as well? Because I know ARMS kind of had an issue with that as well. This would be a perfect example of if you're a AAA studio and you're if you're publishing a bunch of different games, that would be a great example of like this is a game that's going to be $15 or $20 because it's
Yeah,
kind of
honestly, if it's
content
in the range of like sub 30, I might be interested enough to pick it up. But above that, I think it's going to be a hard sell. Yeah. All right, we move into a third-party montage where we get a bunch of confirmations. Elden Ring is one of the big ones. It looks pretty good on the Switch too.
Crazy.
I would say this generally looks, I think, better than the Steam Deck version. So I hope the Switch 2 has better specs than Steam Deck does. At
That's
the
a real
price
screwed up
point.
thing for you to say.
Well, I think that makes sense because the Steam Deck's a couple years old at this point. Like, I love my Steam Deck, but its hardware is not the most up to date. So the Switch 2 getting some new stuff would be really fun. Hades 2 is, of course, going to be really, really enjoyable on the Switch 2, especially if they do the whole cross-save thing.
It's so funny. I like yelled in happiness when I saw this, but of course it's gonna be on the Switch too. Like that shouldn't even be a surprise.
It's not surprising once you think about it, but it's gonna be really fun. And
I mean,
like this
Hades
looks like
is
it
on
runs
Switch
so much
1,
better.
right?
The first one is. The second one isn't only because it's in early access right now. So
Yeah.
release.
So Street Fighter 6 on Switch. Something interesting with this is they have another gameplay mode, so you can play Street Fighter 6 with motion controls.
Oh Jesus Christ!
They have like a whole set of things, so you can like do your attacks with motion controls.
Gotta be real with you, Chief. I ain't doing that. The input lag is too much.
Honestly, like I think that might be really fun if you're in person and both of you are using it, and you're just having an insane like time
That would
playing
be
all the characters
hilarious.
with motion controls.
For like
I think
one or
that might
two
be super
times, and
fun.
then I'd be so tired of it. But
Because like everyone knows
yeah.
they're not going to be precise. Yeah, it looks cool. This is Daemon X
Ryan,
Machina 2.
I had a question. I'm going to be honest with you. I thought this was going to be a second Vanquish game for half a second during the suit
The
up
design
bit.
sensibilities are the same for sure. Yeah, I think this looks really good in terms of like focusing on some cool stuff.
Mhm.
I'm gonna do that until Alex gets his camera back because he's messing up the layout.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, Vanquish 2 looks very cool. I think this is a very fun looking game. It's weird they're going from mechs to like pilot suits basically. They're doing like the javelin thing from Anthem of all things.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not
Huh.
full mechs. They're like a suit. Which yeah, could be really fun. I think this game looks fun. The first game was fun, so hopefully that follows. Then we get Madden. Anyone else got thoughts about Madden?
No, move on.
Very excited for Tony Hawk's 3 and 4. Loved 1 and 2, so I'm super hyped to play this game. It'll probably be fun on Switch. I don't know if that's the platform that I'll play it on, but it looks neat. Very fun games in general.
Absolutely.
We also got Hitman, which is very cool considering that Hitman is actually like a really taxing game to play on things. This, I think, is the one that's most interesting to me from like a Switch 2 power perspective. Because
Yeah.
Hitman is like
I thought
a
if
very taxing game to run.
if there
they
was going to be
announced
any Hitman
performance
game
at
on
all?
Switch, I thought it was going to be the sniper one where you're just in place looking at levels. But
Have
Yeah,
they talked about performance for Hitman at all?
I don't think so. I don't think we've
it's
seen like what
looking
the
okay
numbers
on the
are.
screenshots they show.
Yeah,
It's
it looks
But I
fine on
don't
fine
know if
there.
footage.
those are.
So if it runs well, very cool. But the insane thing, James Bond, the Project 007 game that we still know nothing about, that we know IOI is doing, is coming to Switch. And this is crazy because of the fact that like this game's not out. We haven't seen it in motion. What is this actually going to look like?
So also worth noting that the little reveal that they have here is almost exactly the same as their like world reveal way back however long
Yeah,
ago.
this is
It's
basically
like
the same
thing.
animation. So I don't know.
I mean, it's definitely the right team for a James Bond game, definitely. And it's probably here just because GoldenEye was on N64. Wow, guys, we did it. But like
well, I also think it's a
weird reveal.
the thing it says to me is that this is a confirmation that some third-party teams are working on like new Switch 2 games, or new games that are cross-platform with Switch 2, which compared to Switch 1 is a huge up
Now, I will
sell.
say this is a pattern with Nintendo where they come out with a new console and they're like, "We're appealing to third-party publishers this time, guys. We swear." And we get a bunch of ports of pre-existing games or promises that future third-party games are coming to it, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
that dries up within like half a year. So, it's a wait and see situation. I do think the performance of the Switch overall, I think puts it of the Switch 2 puts it in a better spot to maintain that kind of third party momentum, but it tends to
Hmm.
fizzle out with Nintendo consoles pretty quickly.
Yeah, for sure. I hope everything here is running well. So I would like to see all of this, I think, represented with Hitman. That seems like a really fun thing to just have. So
Mhm.
I don't know. I think it's a super cool thing to be doing. But yeah, we don't know exactly what this is gonna look like. All right. Moving on from Hitman, we see some Bravely Default stuff, which is very cool. And we see Yakuza 0 Director's Cut, which is also very cool. But I'm going to glaze over the third-party stuff for the most part, even though I really want to talk about Yakuza 0 Director's Cut. To go into Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, which is an interesting
yeah.
one, because this, I believe, is one of the few times where we're getting like well, not few times, but we're getting like another canon Warriors game in a setting where like Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity was definitely not canon because it goes into a bunch of side stuff compared to what the actual games go into, whereas this
An
is
alternate
like,
history type deal.
I wonder if this is going to be alternate history again, or if we're actually doing proper timeline continuity with this one. It seems like
They
we
could do
might be.
whatever they want because the story of where this is, it does deal with time travel, so they can
Yeah.
kind of do whatever wacky, weird time
They're left a
travel
lot more open with this one.
shenanigans.
So
Yeah.
Oh, I like the Warriors games. I like being able to delete hordes of enemies at a time
yeah, I love
with
Warriors games.
sweeping attacks.
I
And
would love if Origins would come to the Switch too. That'd be awesome. We got Dynasty Warriors
And Age
Origins.
of Calamity was a lot of fun for what it was. I think it got
Really liked
very
it.
repetitive after a while, and the performance was a problem. But it was very very good. So I'm interested to see, especially with like characters that we don't know that much about that are
Yeah.
new to Tears of the Kingdom.
For me,
It'll be
performance was the
interesting
reason
to
I stopped
see.
playing that one. So
Yeah, it got really rough.
it was
after a
rough,
while.
properly rough. So I hope we see a patch for Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity as well. I would
That'd be
love to see
great.
like an upgrade for that. Aside from that, we get a pretty big announcement for Switch 2 Online, which is we're getting GameCube.
But
That's pretty big.
Now, it is a big deal. I'm going to throw this out there. One of the games they showed off for the GameCube is Wind Waker. Now,
Yep.
as someone who's always wanted to play Wind Waker and has never had the hardware capability to do so, very exciting. I'm a little worried that because Wind Waker is going to be on the GameCube Nintendo Classics, that we're not going to get the HD remaster from the Wii U.
I think the ship might have sailed at this point, Wyatt. I think we may get it. The ship might have sailed.
Never again.
That said, so I've played a fair bit of the remaster on Wii U. I don't own a Wii U anymore. That's a system that I sold when I was a kid. I just didn't keep it that long. And my bucket list of Wii U games has finally started making its way to the Switch. Wind Waker, the Wii U remaster is really good. Wind Waker itself is a great game on its own, and it still holds up visually. I mean, the most painful thing about it is going to be the fact that you're playing it in 4:3.
Yeah.
That's going to be legitimately the worst part. Everything else is still going to look and run basically exactly the same as the remaster, just with a different aesthetic.
What the big deal is.
I
bring it to
agree with you.
Switch.
Like, why have they not ported it
is-
from the Wii U?
I do not understand.
Twilight Princess is the bigger confusion for me, because that was a really big deal when that re-release came out. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like they need to release these on modern stuff. Soul Calibur 2 getting a spot here is really big, because Soul Calibur 2 has Link as a character in it, and this version of Soul Calibur has been completely unplayable for a very long time.
Really?
Outside of owning the disc, just because you basically have not been able to, on any platform that Soul Calibur 2's on, they haven't had Link, because Link is a Nintendo character. So, because like the Xbox version has like Spawn and one other character, but Link is really
And there's one
fun.
that has Darth Vader and Yoda, right?
That's a different Soul Calibur.
Oh.
Not the same Soul Calibur. But yes, there is a Soul Calibur game that has Darth Vader and Yoda.
That's very funny. I love that.
Yeah, I think this will be a really good, fun time with the GameCube games. In general, very fun. I think F-Zero GX is the biggest one, because that game notoriously runs pretty poorly on emulators as well. So I would be very excited to actually play that.
Now, I have a question for everyone here. Now that we're up to GameCube in terms of Nintendo emulation, where do you think the ceiling is there? Where do you think this Nintendo Classics
Wii's gonna be
emulation is
hard.
gonna stop?
Yeah, Wii is gonna be really hard, and the DS is also really hard because it's not got two screens.
I mean, for a lot of games, it's doable. For instance, like the Castlevania games have been re-released that were on 3DS, but a lot of 3DS games require the two screens. So.
You know what I would like, Wyatt?
Yeah, I feel like both.
Pure pipe dream. It's got a USB-C on the top. Give it a second screen.
No! Oh no!
You're
for
wild
both-
for that.
I feel like both for Nintendo DS and Wii, like hardware-wise, it's going to be perfectly fine. But those games are going to be a hard sell as just a simple port rather than like a remake or a remaster.
Yeah.
Or something.
Think about all the
I've
hoops-
seen DS games officially ported to mobile. So
Yeah, I mean, it
think
can
about-
happen.
Think about the hoops that Skyward Sword had to go through to be ported onto.
That
to
game
to
is
Switch.
still jank.
Yeah.
And that's
I
I
played
like
it on
that
the Switch.
game, don't get me wrong.
That's a pretty severe case of like this was definitely designed with weird motion controls.
A different
Like,
thing in mind.
And this is the
Yeah.
second time that game has come up in my day today. I don't know if that means I'm having a great day or a strange day.
Yes.
Why not both?
I liked Skyward Sword because it
I
was
did
one of
too.
my first Wii games.
I don't hate it.
I think
don't hate it.
I had problems with the controls, but the rest of the game I really liked.
Other thing I want to mention
We're
here,
getting a
we're
GameCube
getting
controller.
a GameCube controller. We're in an actual GameCube controller release, which I am very excited for, because I believe these are like essentially Wavebirds. They're wireless.
Okay, I really want to know if this can function as a Pro controller. They mention it only in the
I'm gonna
context
try.
of playing GameCube games.
The problem is it's also actually no. Do they have a little button there? I think they have a little
button.
button there.
They do.
I feel like this will. Yeah.
C button.
Oh
Oh.
my god. They have the C
Because
button.
I
Yep.
will
Yeah, it's got
legitimately
everything.
buy this over a new Pro controller, probably.
I will probably do the same.
I love the GameCube controller. I think it's great to hold.
As
The
someone who
only
doesn't have
concern
Also,
I have
yeah.
is
best way to play
the
Smash
C-stick.
Brothers. Absolutely. Playing Smash Ultimate with a GameCube controller is the best way to play that game.
As someone who doesn't have nostalgia for the GameCube controller, I don't know if I'd do that. If I
Dude,
found
it
the
is just,
cheat, I
it's
guess,
such a
but-
nice controller layout. It's so
The other deal
easy
is
to
I
use.
just have a USB, like a GameCube controller to USB thing already. So I'm hoping that will work. And I will just be able to use my...
I mean, it seems like it just has a
Here we go.
USB-C
It's over here.
controller. Like, it just has a USB-C at the end.
Hold on. I got it tangled. But I have my OG right here plugged into my PC right now for things Nintendo wouldn't like.
Well, yeah, I
Allegedly.
imagine this will just read on PC as a controller. Because
Yeah,
it's
but I
got
just mean, I kind of hope
USB-C
that I
It
can
is
just
input.
take
Nintendo.
mine.
It is Nintendo, so God knows what kind of wacky, weird
Ugh.
shit they're gonna do to it. But
Yeah.
I mean, they
I don't know if
made their
any of you
PC,
guys-
their Pro controller work fine on PC.
If we
so
detect an emulator, we break your computer.
got a built-in
There's
drive killer.
there's malware in it.
it'll just kill your computer outright.
I was excited to see. Sorry, I came in at the end. I stepped away for a sec. So if I'm stepping over somebody, sorry. But I was excited to see GameCube games, but I really thought to myself, I really own almost every GameCube game I could possibly have interest in. There's only one or two, and then I saw Pokemon XD, Gale of Darkness, and I
Yeah,
went,
it's got
"That's
the
the one.
Pokemon
Never
games.
mind. I'm getting it. I'm playing
Now,
it."
what I have to wonder, if they get Pokemon Home working with those games, which would be crazy, but very cool.
I don't,
Because they don't
already
have an easy like port
Stadium,
out.
don't they?
I don't know.
They already have
I think they
Stadium, I
do.
believe, and they did not do that. However, the Virtual Console releases of Red, Blue, Yellow, which I'm playing through right now, do connect. So, hard to say.
Yeah, I would love to see that. Also, Deltarune fully completed and releasing is very big. This is like, I think, a very fun indie grab for Switch. I think it's going to be a great time to play. It's also
I'm
a launch
certain
title.
that'll be a launch day purchase in my household.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. It'll be a good time. Now, Borderlands 4, kind of excited about this on Switch
Yep.
if it runs well. Because this could be a fun game to kind of like grind while you're relaxing on the couch or something and just like leaning back, Switch style. So,
Put a dumb movie on, play a dumb game.
No
Exactly.
complaints. No complaints about this reveal, other than the fact that Randy Pitchford's here.
yeah, other than that.
Yeah, God, he really put himself in there when he didn't need to be there.
Yep. This is going to be really interesting to me because Civ 7, I've played Civ 6 on the Switch. It doesn't run great. It's probably the least optimal way to play that
insane
game.
That's insane to me. Why?
But it's pretty fun. It's fun. It's a really good playing game. If you play a Civ 6 game on your Switch. But switch to Civ 7 with mouse mode, I could see that being a fun thing, presuming that this game runs well on Switch 2 on a plane, Civ games I actually think are very fun controller games. We're getting WWE games on Switch 2, which is very fun. I hope it's the good version of the WWE games, because for some reason
We'll
they
see.
didn't release the good version on PC, and instead we got the bad version from the old consoles.
Weird.
Which is super
Wait, what's
strange.
the difference
'cause
in versions?
So there's an entire, normally not much, but right now there's like a whole gameplay difference in that the island mode, which is like the big selling point of the newer game, is just not a thing in the PC version, which sucks. Because you just can't play that game mode, and it's using a bunch of old assets and whatnot. So I don't know. I would much rather
That's so
play.
weird. You'd think that the PC version would, be up to date with the next gen, current gen.
Nope. So we don't get the good new stuff. Stranded Kids seems interesting. I think this is actually an old series, or Survival Kids. I think this is a remake of an older game. I can't be certain though, because I haven't looked into it. This game
The
looks
art
very
style
fun.
makes me think
Gungeon
that's right.
2.
Mm.
I loved Gungeon 1, so I hope Gungeon 2 is a
I've
fun
heard
addition.
very good things about Gungeon 1.
It's very good. It's a very fun roguelite. Starseeker is from, I believe, the Astroneer team and looks super cool. Very into
makes
this. I
sense.
think you and I might have a
thought
fun
this was
time with this, Wyatt.
I thought this was Astroneer when
Astroneer
they were first
Expeditions.
showing it. Oh, there you go. Look at that.
I feel like we might have a fun time with that one.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And yeah, the craziness that is Cyberpunk 2077 running on Switch. Man, if this runs perfectly, I'll be stunned.
Again, they've said
Honest to God,
depending on the performance modes, 30 to 40 frames per second at 1080p, which I think for handheld is more than I was expecting.
Yeah, legitimately.
If it's stable, I'm not going to complain at all. In fact, when I first played the game on PC, that's probably what I was getting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's around probably what you would get on a Steam Deck, right? Is like 40 frames. I think I
if
I
hear it's good,
Steam Deck has
stable,
some problems
I might
with
pick it up.
Cyberpunk.
I might pick this up if it's legitimately as good as it looks here.
Yeah. It would be a really fun game to play on the go. Final Fantasy VII Remake, very, very good pickup. This is, I think, probably the like re-release that I'm most likely to play, is playing Remake again on the Switch. I think could be super fun.
Great version too.
Yeah, it's the full version. So I would love to play this again. I really, really love this game, and I really liked the sequel a lot more. I think Rebirth is a much better game, even liking Remake quite a lot.
I'm willing to bet if this comes, Rebirth will come.
My question with Rebirth is just like Rebirth's not on the last gen stuff. So that's a full current gen port, and Rebirth is a very pretty game that doesn't run great.
There's no news for the third game, right?
It's in development.
News for that yet? Oh.
Yeah, nothing.
We'll see Kunitsugami here. That was
yeah. Kunitsugami is also, I think that's going to be a day one pickup for me. Is Kunitsugami as soon as it's on there.
Switch game.
Because I played a ton of Kunitsugami on Game Pass, and I haven't finished it yet. I really want to, so this feels like a good opportunity is to pick it up on Switch.
And then we have the game that everybody's pogging in their pants for, the Silk Song
yeah, the like
frames
5-second Silk Song 2025. Which is crazy that they just slip it in here and like, hey, it's coming. I'll believe it when I see it.
Did they just massively underestimate how excited people are for Silk Song? I have to wonder if that's the case here.
I don't know. Or maybe it's that Silk Song doesn't have like a release date yet, and so they don't want to put it more prominently in the thing. I don't know. Witchbook looks great. I'm glad Wild Hearts is getting some more time on a different console, because Wild Hearts is probably the best Monster Hunter like. Boyo Tetris rocks, Alex.
Okay, I'm probably
my God,
I'm probably getting Comic Invasion on the Switch. That is like such a perfect.
I would get it on Switch except for Steam Remote Play. I think is going to be great with that game.
I have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on the Switch already. My only complaint is that no one ever played it with me, but it ran great. It looked great. It's awesome on the go.
This is that's absolutely a game where I can get a group of friends together for that. Very shocked to see Outlaws coming to Switch.
Star Wars Outlaws coming to Switch is pretty crazy too. That's another modern, not last gen release. So
this is going to be a weird one. Grand Bazaar I own on DS. Might pick up the remake.
I didn't know this was a remake. Very cool.
It is a remake of. It had a different title. It's Harvest Moon Grand Bazaar.
Yeah.
Also,
Story Season team, very good
Hearts?
Team. Yeah,
Wild Hearts was completely out of left field.
Super excited to see Wild Hearts again, because I had a great time with that game. I think it's the most competent Monster Hunter like. They just kind of dropped the ball on supporting it after the fact. So
does it still have like an audience? I'm just kind of surprised that they even.
I imagine most of the audience is playing Monster Hunter Wilds right now.
Yeah.
But it is a great game.
About the hardware itself again. So they look to be only gray controllers. It doesn't look like they're coming in any different colored versions.
For launch, I imagine they're going to do the same thing as Switch 1 and give us some like colored shells later. I'd be really surprised if they didn't monetize that in the future. That's what Professor Layton mentioned.
I'm pogging in my pants now.
All right. Yeah, that's all the third-party stuff.
Tomagotchi
Can
life.
you say that on video?
Pogging in my pants?
And this is where everyone who likes Bloodborne
Oh my
This is-
god.
a little.
Crazy.
Yeah.
This is crazy. I thought this was going to be Castlevania at first.
Yeah,
Oh
Duskbloods
my
Then I was like,
is
no, it's Bloodborne.
Duskbloods is a wild
Something altogether new.
thing for the Switch because it's also the weird
Don't
thing
say
with
those
Duskbloods.
words.
It's a PvPvE sort of like
Oh,
extraction game.
the
that
only way you can
Miyazaki-
ruin a Souls-like.
Well, so I'm not actually like I this is not going to be a game for me because I love Souls likes. I hate PvPvE extraction stuff. Like it is truly a genre that
Nightmare.
I get. It's the only game genre that actively tilts me. And I played competitive League of Legends for like 10 years. And I never got
You're a
that mad at
masochist.
League of Legends. Look, I play fighting games. I understand that, Alex.
I will also say, and take this with a grain of salt from someone who doesn't play a lot of Souls likes, but FromSoft have been making Souls-like games for over 10 years now. They're very good at doing those things, but I think it's really important. Now, it's a bit of a negative connotation at the moment, but I think it's really important to let developers
Try new
try
things.
different things. And now you can make the argument Armored Core was different. It is different compared to what they've been making recently, but they've also made a lot of Armored Core games in the past.
Mm-hmm.
I really hope that people can, because again, I'm probably not going to play this to be, full transparency,
Yeah.
but I think it's really important to let developers breathe and let them experiment with different
Yeah.
things and try new things,
And it's also possible,
I
like, I'm
am-
open to this changing my mind on the PvPvE games, because this Souls-likes are my jam. I love FromSoft stuff, and if I
Do you
hear
know
that
if
this
this
is good
is
from
gonna
other
be a
people,
Souls-like?
I'll probably play it. I mean, we know very little about this.
looks
It
like
looks like a Souls-like. I think that's what everyone's assuming. But it's
I'd
a
be very
PvPvE
interested.
extraction game, which like Souls-likes are kind of extraction games already, and how they function with life and death and whatnot. But yeah,
Yeah.
something a lot of people don't know is Miyazaki, the director of this game, is a real big, like, he's very interested in Tarkov as a thing.
I'd
And has said that
Fascinating.
before.
That's
So
fascinating.
I
I'd
don't
be
know, it's
very
super interesting.
interested if because there's that interview with Miyazaki talking about how they've pushed pretty much like the gameplay to its limit with Elden Ring in terms of how
Yeah.
difficulty can go. I wonder if with this game they've had enough time to implement those changes that they think, or try like the next sort of avenue that they're willing to expound on the gameplay a bit, or more, or refine it more.
Yeah, in general, we just don't know very much about Duskbloods yet. I don't think anyone's gotten their hands on it.
This could be
And
something I could try.
And I will say this too, because I had mentioned earlier that like we see a pattern with Nintendo console releases where they like look at all this party support we have, we're taking it seriously, and then it kind of fizzles out after like a year or something like
Yeah.
that. I will say the argument against that is this existing at all.
Yes.
An exclusive FromSoft game is a big fucking deal. Like that
Yeah.
says
Huge.
so much about,
Even if it's a really
Third-party-
weird genre compared to the rest of their stuff.
but I think it says so much about how third-party publishers are perceiving the Switch 2 over the original, and how much
Yeah.
effort they're also putting into the ports that are going into it right now.
Yep.
Yeah.
But the other thing to mention with Duskbloods, 2026 release date. So
Oh, yeah.
far off. It's possible we
God,
see
they're working-
changes.
They're working on so many games right now.
Yeah,
It's
FromSoft's got to have a big
crazy.
team at this point because they're doing a ton of stuff.
Crazy.
Having just come out with the Elden Ring DLC recently. Yeah. But very cool. I'm very excited for this. Now, game of the show, and probably my game of the year. We know Sakurai's been making a game at Nintendo for a while.
Incredible.
They
Incredible.
teased us that it could
Plug
be
it in the
Smash.
GameCube controller.
Yeah, plug it in that GameCube controller right now. And I remember hearing some people like make a joke that, oh, what if Sakurai was working on Kirby Air Ride 2? And I was like, oh, I would love that. And it turns out Sakurai was working on Kirby Air Ride 2.
I had heard rumor, or like I had. I think you said it. I think maybe another friend of mine said it too. That they were like, I'm waiting for Kirby Air Ride in the reveal, and I was just like, haha, there's no way.
And then this happens, and I'm like,
then I
oh
saw
my
that
god,
star,
we're back.
And
Honestly,
I shit myself.
very similar to way back in the day. They had a Nintendo Direct, and we saw it with a bunch of buddies in college. And I was like, hey, what if they announce a new Smash Brothers game? And everyone's like,
And then
no,
all of a
that's not
sudden-
happening. And then people were throwing chairs in the dorm that we were watching it in. People went feral.
This is the game that makes me go feral.
Oh, sure. Sure.
But-
Is it Kirby Kart Racing? What is it?
So Kirby Air Ride, Alex, this is Air Riders, the sequel. Air Ride is a phenomenal, like somewhat, it's a racing game, but it's a one-button racer. So it's like you control with the left stick, and you only have one button, which is your like drift button essentially, but you like tap it and charge it, and different carts have like a different control assigned to that and work differently.
Yeah.
There's like carts that only turn if you are holding that
There's a
button, but they go really
cool as
fast
hell
in a straight
free
line.
roam mode too.
City Trial is the single best racing game mode I've ever played. And I'm confident in that. Where basically you have like a small city that you roam around. And this is a GameCube game. You have like 5 minutes to roam around the map and get upgrades and stuff. And then you're playing with a bunch of bots or your friends or whatnot. And at the end, and you can like get off of your cart and go run around and grab a new cart and whatnot. And you're upgrading your stats. You're like riding around this map, finding secrets and stuff. There's like events going on with like the sky starts falling meteors and stuff. Crazy cool mode. At the end, you have a challenge that you end up doing, which could be a race. It could be like, oh, who can go the fastest in a drag race, straight line. It could be wacky things like who gets knocked off their thing first. Super fun mode.
That sounds
Tons of
wild.
variation. I have not played anything like it in any other racing game since. I think the closest I've come is Forza's like almost battle royale mode, which is also very fun. And man, I just want to play more of that, of City Trial, because it's such a fun mode. The only way for me to be disappointed in this game is if it doesn't have a City Trial
My
equivalent.
Switch.
Hey, we have we have the new Mario Kart, we have Kirby Air Riders, and we have don't we have like F-Zero coming in one of the classics collections?
Yeah,
things?
it's in the GameCube
Yes.
collection. So that
the
looks
era
very cool.
of racing games returns.
Yeah, Kirby Air Ride, phenomenal game. Very excited to play it again. And probably, I think the highlight of the new games for many, Donkey Kong Bonanza
This
looks wild.
rad. I am very excited.
It's like
Donkey
Red Faction
Kong.
Gorilla Donkey Kong.
Okay. Red Faction Gorilla Donkey Kong.
Fully break apart the map and go through and like.
I just think
Go ahead, Alex.
Well, first off, I like Donkey Kong, but I think this looks really interesting because it's so fresh and new. This does not look like Donkey Kong Country.
Yes.
Does not look like Donkey Kong 64. It does not look like Donkey Kong. It does not look like Mario.
That's a key thing.
like
Like,
a
this looks super
brand new
different than everything. Whether or not you're a fan of Donkey Kong's redesign, I think the actual
DK's got
gameplay
paints.
here looks amazing. I'm super excited for how like destructible everything is. It seems like the whole set of levels is just very fun. The
I saw
Treehouse
something
played
where
a ton
someone,
of this game.
Oh.
I saw something where someone can like take
I-
chunks out of the ground, throw it
Yeah, they're
into
doing that right now.
walls, and creates platforms to climb up on, which is just such
Oh,
a
that's
cool-
awesome.
cool idea.
Oh,
Yeah, you
that's
got like
I,
crazy things to throw. It just
really-
looks like a great time.
you know
Visually,
I
there's
love
enough
me a destructible environment.
Yeah, visually, there's enough similar about this that I have to wonder, or maybe even assume, that this may be the same team as Mario Odyssey.
I was thinking
be.
the same
I do-
thing, yeah.
I do wonder.
But it could also be the same team as Knack 2. Because it kind of looks knacky in how things break apart. If anyone else
knew they had-
remembers Knack.
Who knew they had the knack for it?
Yep.
Ah,
Yeah, Bonanza looks really fun. I think this is probably one of the best
I don't
looking
want
things from
to.
the
I don't
show.
want to get into the controversy here, but I personally like the new Donkey Kong look.
Oh yeah, something wrong with his face?
I'm ambivalent on it. I don't love the dark spaces at the top of his eyes. I think that his pupils need to go to the top.
I'm gonna
Or
be honest
his
with you.
eyes need to go to the top.
I am not familiar enough with Donkey Kong where if I saw this, I would not notice anything different about his face. I'm just
To
not.
me, it looks
I
wouldn't know.
like they went back to his very older appearances and sort of redesigned it from there.
It's just like, I think for me, his eyes need to be like 10% bigger. Like, that's all it is. Or
It does feel
The
like there's a lot
only
of
way
negative
that I can
space.
describe it is that he looks like Seth Rogen more to me.
All right. Well, on that note, we're practically done with the direct stuff. I think overall, like, aside from the pricing talk that we've all had, I'm pretty happy with everything that was shown.
Separated from all of that, I think this is one of the more exciting directs from Nintendo that we've gotten in
Because
quite a
they
while.
really went deep into a lot of stuff. I mean, this was an hour long, and it was an hour that was filled with stuff. And a lot of that was third party, which was really cool to see, of like all this third party stuff getting ported. I think maybe some people might have been expecting like one or two more Nintendo things. I think those are coming later. Like I think we'll totally see more Nintendo stuff directly coming to the Switch
think-
2 at the end of the year.
I know it's not like literally the same in title, and it's not going to sell as well. But I feel like Donkey Kong Bonanza here kind of takes the place of what I expected them to say something about Mario.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
totally.
I also think it was really smart because I'm sure they have more first party stuff coming down the pipeline, right? But I think it was actually really smart to split focus with third party here because,
Mhm.
like I said, it says a lot that FromSoft is developing their own exclusive. I genuinely think this is probably the best chance that Nintendo is gonna have at third party than they've had in a long time.
Especially
and
like
so I think-
Cyberpunk coming to Switch is huge.
Absolutely.
wild.
Elden Ring. I think we even talked about if
Yeah.
we pondered last episode if Elden Ring was going to be there. Confidently, I'm pretty sure I was like, no, it's not going to happen.
Great.
I definitely
Like-
was confident. I said no.
Yeah, I think it's great that Elden Ring is here. Yeah, I think the third party support's really cool. I would be the big thing to me is if we get an Ubisoft game on Switch that is like a modern Ubisoft game and not a port of an old game.
Ooh,
I
tough.
feel
Or-
Black
like
Flag again.
a Black
or,
Flag is
or-
great on Switch actually. I've played a lot of it on Switch. But I would love to see Valhalla or Origins or Odyssey.
I mean, what they typically do with Nintendo is they have their own weird, like usually Rabbids games or something. Like they usually develop games specifically for Nintendo. But honestly, with the state that Ubisoft is in right now, I don't know if they have the. I don't know.
I mean,
if
they're
they can
bringing
justify
Outlaws,
doing
right?
that.
So
Yeah.
if Outlaws
Which
can
is
run, I
crazy.
have to imagine AC, Odyssey, and Valhalla can probably run as well.
Maybe not
So-
Shadows. I don't think Shadows. But
Shadows might be too new, but
Yeah.
yeah, I would not be surprised if we get some AC ports. And it would be fun. I'd play Odyssey again on this. I mentioned Valhalla. I wouldn't play Valhalla again.
no.
I would play Odyssey again on the Switch.
I do love, by the way, Ryan. You've come around to where I've come around to with Valhalla, because I finished it way before you did, and I was like,
I haven't finished
don't
it.
like this.
I just stopped. I finally
like this.
broke.
And then you were like, no, I still like it, and then you kind of reached the same conclusion that I did.
Well, so the problem is I still have liked Valhalla the whole time. It's just like it's too much. It's too much of the exact same thing.
Which is exactly what I said. I hate it kind of out of spite, but also because it's like I needed it to end, and I just wanted to get to the end of the story, and it just wouldn't.
It's too
fucking
meandering.
end.
It's too meandering. Like I like a lot of the side stuff, but it's also like
Odyssey has the same problem personally.
we'll talk
absolutely.
about Valhalla at a different time. This is not the podcast. But I do have
completely
a
got us
whole
derailed,
Valhalla
sorry.
rant to go on next time.
My God.
But yeah, I overall really happy with this. I can just hope that the Switch 2 is still under $500. That's really my hope at this point.
I hope and pray.
And when it comes to
and vote.
pricing, when it comes to pricing for games, to me, it's a wait and see how much these games justify an $80 price tag.
And for me, I'm like, I get the $80 price tag thing. Donkey Kong is $70, and I'm sold. Like Donkey Kong showing it to me, it's regular $70 price, fully in immediately. I don't really need to see more.
I,
Mario Kart World was an I need to see more to be certain, but
Mario Kart World is I need to see more for $80. I do not need to see more if it's getting bundled for $50 more.
Totally.
Yeah.
That for sure is
But it
part
would
of it.
kind of suck that you'd be getting a digital version and not a physical version, because I'm pretty sure the
This is
bundle comes
true,
with
but
the
I don't know,
digital
because I
version.
kind of want the digital version so it's always on my Switch. Because that's the type of game to rip out like whenever you've got it with you to just
True,
go for
true.
it. But yeah, I overall happy with this. It seems like that's the general attitude, and just we're all a little bit wary of whatever tariff pricing is going to hit us with this one.
It's gonna be terrible.
Yep. Yep.
that was terrible.
Well,
It
speaking
really
of
was.
terrible, let's get shoutouts. Because that's the end of the show. We did all the stuff. We talked about the things. Who's got a shout out they want to do?
I do.
Go for it,
Do it.
Alex.
Do it.
Pause for dramatic effect. Bao buns. Love them. There's so much work to make, but they're so delicious.
Very good.
Oh, and
Love to see it.
And the extra filling that I keep making from them, it goes so wonderful in a wrap.
Quality. All right.
I
Who
love
else has got
bun
one?
meat.
I got one. So I'm always trying new stuff on Steam Deck because it's a great way to grind through some of your like backlog games, right? Because I have this weird thing where like now if there's a game that plays really well and it's like a smaller kind of 2D game, I want to save it for the Steam Deck rather than playing it on my main PC, you know? Which is the perfect way to start playing games like Mini Shoot Adventures, which
Ooh.
is if you take 2D Zelda, but you also make it a bullet hell, like a space shooter bullet hell. So you've got like your overworld with your items that unlock new areas and stuff, but it has the combat of a bullet hell, and it also has like experience and upgrades and collectibles, almost like little Korok seeds with their little like golden beetles and stuff like that. Really, really cute. Runs really well because it's just it's a a 2D kind of overworld type deal. And it's just really polished and well made, and it's a ton of fun. I got it. It's usually $15, but I got it for like $5 or $6 on a Steam sale, and fantastic. Very, very
Sounds
well
great.
made.
All right. Alex, we'll save yours for last. It's going to be a little bit longer.
Okay.
So,
I've only
Oh no! Oh no!
Uh,
Can we do another card opening? Can we do another? I'm leaving. I am leaving.
well, first we got my shout out, Wyatt, which is I picked these up in Japan when I was on the trip there. There's little music boxes
Ooh.
from the Final Fantasy series, and I gotta disable the noise gate on my microphone to make sure that these read correctly. There we go. For a really specific type of person, this is really hitting right now. 2 Xanarkand on a music box is very good to have. And that is just going to keep going until it stops. As it is a music box.
Neat.
All right, Alex, it's
Alright,
your
well,
moment.
Wyatt, you can leave if you want.
You got to see his
'Cause,
pulls.
I saved back. How do I turn off the blur here? 'Cause that's not
Oh my
clear. I saved back a pack of Journey Together from when I was at the shop last Monday. My thing does not auto adjust focus very well, so you might get some real blurry Pokemon cards.
Some real blurry cards here. You're going to pull the Clefairy.
Here we go. You'll get the ASMR if I do it over here.
Ooh.
That might be really loud.
This
I
is a
don't
real
know.
like
Oh.
Renaissance painting of a
Oh,
pot
the crinkle.
right now.
All right, we can ditch the Pokemon Live card here. We got Larvitar. I can't see what that is.
Remoraid?
Remoraid. Carablast. Oh, that's the Yukimori art, which is
Some
good.
bug I keep finding in my shoe.
Oh, hey, that's Torchic. I know that Pokemon.
Yeah.
Oh, Banette. I think this is not the Banette I use in my deck. Never mind.
Ooh,
I don't
that
see
looks
what that is.
fancy.
Pangoro.
Is that
Nice.
holographic or is that just like a sheeny gray?
Nah, it's just a card.
It's just a card.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's gonna be
I
the
dropped
card either
something.
way. What the?
I mean, all right. It's not hollow. It's just a regular card. It's Grimmsnarl. Clank.
I always thought that was a cool
Ends
Pokemon design.
Clank. This one's hollow.
Yeah, you got to the reverse
Ah.
hollows.
Oh, that's nice and shiny.
Hollow Greedent.
Big pull.
Opposition EX.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
Probably pretty
and
good.
Full art.
I have
damn.
one more. It's an energy. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Well,
That'll
that was
go
a
in the
good shout
binder.
out.
It's got the penny sleeve over here ready to go. Go in the binder.
Yeah.
It's probably worth.
See, Alex, I'll just
$2.
lift this into frame a little bit, just to make you. just wait.
Oh my god. Hey, Wyatt, get a load of how thick this
What?
is. Get it back
It's
in
gone
screen.
now. No, it's off
Oh.
screen. It's a tease for later. It's a tease for later. So that is the end of our show. As always, Tuesdays, Podcast of your choice, YouTube and Twitch. Catch us wherever. I think a lot of us are on Blue Sky now because Twitter is a dumpster fire. Check out the Split Fiction playthrough. It's fun.
I can tell you could follow me on Blue Sky, but I would have to know what my username is.